Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier, and welcome back to another episode of Film Theory Reactions.
And by another... They mean the first reaction to Film Theory! Anyway, we're going to be doing another reaction video because the last one did great, and possibly a new channel will be formed soon.
By great, get 500 views. We're the lowest content. We're the lowest level of content.
No, I got like 100 views on that one.
Oh,
500 was that. 500
videos.
was that. Yeah.
Frame.
Yeah, you probably are.
Okay.
Anyway, let's just start watching.
How mad will you be?
No,
it's time to do a film theory. How mad will you be? We screwed up this bad movie. How bad can I be?
No.
The ones there isn't really bad, you will see. How bad can I be? You're really not. Quite the contrary. How wrong could we possibly be? Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, the show that tells jokes that ooze with such ease. But those jokes are filled with such cheese that the joke police might one day raid my home and say, freeze! The keyboard they'll seize, the lawsuits they'll tease, and by now you're all shouting, stop, please! Today we're talking about a Dr. Seuss classic, The Lorax, the classic tale of how a flourishing forest full of truffula trees was reduced to a barren wasteland when a businessman rolls into town and exploits the trees for profit. It's a classic story about something beautiful that everyone loved can be ruined by greedy corporate interest. And what better way for Illumination Entertainment, creator of the Minion movies, to teach that very lesson to a new generation than by taking the iconic story and adding an extra hour of runtime. Now, some people might call this an unnecessary cash grab that totally negates the message of the original story. What, were you expecting a but at the end of that sentence? It totally negates the original message of the story, but not nearly as much as the decision to take the pro-environmentalist icon Lorax and use him to promote a Mazda SUV. Not hybrid or electric or anything like that, just a gas-guzzling SUV, and also HP printers, and IHOP, and freaking Comcast. You see this? This right here? It's called The Point. Illumination Entertainment? You missed it. But see, they're not alone, because when it comes to the Lorax movie, audiences miss the point too. And to be clear, I'm talking about that movie itself and all of the stuff that was shoved into it to stretch that 30-minute story into 85 minutes of runtime. The Lorax film seems to have a message that's pro-tree, ending with a big musical about how we all need to let it grow. But if you really look at what's actually happening in this movie, neither the Onceler nor the new villain Aloysius O'Hare are to blame. And yes, I sang it. It's the way I remember how to pronounce his name. Every song in this movie is a bop. Movie itself, questionable quality, but man, the songs are just delightful, obnoxious for everyone involved, unclear. Anyway, the villains of this movie aren't the villains here. Rejoice, all you Onceler and Greedler shippers. How bad can they be? Not as bad as you might think, you see. Meanwhile, the characters that the movie is trying to cast in the role of heroes aren't quite as heroic as they might seem. The long and short of it all is that no one understood this story, which is just a wee bit concerning since in a very literal way, the fate of the world depends upon its message. For starters, let's take a look at the main villain of the story. As you may or may not know, the classic story of the Lorax is about the Onceler, an enterprising businessman who chops down all of the truffula trees to manufacture these wildly popular garments called thneeds. But in this new Lorax movie, that's all in the past. It's a story within a story. In the present day of the film, we're living in the aftermath of the Onceler. There are 0 trees, and the one city that we see, Thneedville, is a synthetic consumerist mecca run by a new businessman who's come to power, Aloysius O'Hare, who built his empire on selling bottled air.
And became a zillionaire!
While Mr. O'Hare officially is a businessman, he basically just runs the place.
Everyone round here works for me.
And he has his own secret police that try to stop our main character Ted when he attempts to sneak out of town. Thneedville is basically a corporatocracy, a word that sounds like it was made up in a Dr. Seuss book, but nope, it's actually right here in the dictionary, because truth is more ridiculous than fiction sometimes. The business model of O'Hare's Air Company, we're told, is that bottled air is made in a factory which manufactures plastic bottles.
You gotta be kidding me. You really think people are stupid enough to buy this?
Our research shows that if you put something in a plastic bottle, people will buy it.
Of course, there's an obvious conflict of interest here. The factories that manufacture O'Hare's plastic bottles spew smog, which in turn drives more people to buy bottled air.
The more smog in the sky, the more people will buy.
But if you take a closer look at what's going on, O'Hare might not be the villain that the movie sets him out to be. Because as much as what I've described sounds like a dystopia, if you look at the actual lives led by the people in Thneedville, the movie actually tells us a completely different story. For starters, the most dystopian part of this might be the idea that people are paying for air. It'd be pretty dang evil if O'Hare monopolized the most vital resource of all and then locked it behind a paywall, forcing people to pay him if they want to live, but that's not what's happening here. It's not as if everyone in this society is spending their lives strapped to an oxygen tank. Sure, some of them buy bottled air for their homes, but they can just go outside at any point and breathe the air for free. In fact, on the extended version of the opening song that appears on the soundtrack, O'Hare straight up tells us this fact.
I sell them something they can get for free.
And it's not as if the air outside looks all that polluted. People are dancing and singing in the streets without having any health concerns. They're not coughing, they're not struggling in any sort of way. Compare that to what the town was like before Aloysius O'Hare showed up, and you got yourself a different story.
Wonder what the next $1 million invention's gonna be.
Yeah, first name.
Yeah.
Oh, the voices.
I wonder.
The air quality was so bad that people outside were indeed coughing and wheezing. What I'm getting at is that though people act as though this bottled air is something that they need in order to breathe, the bottled air they buy isn't really improving the quality of the air that they have access to in their homes or outside. It is pure placebo effect, and we can prove it using science. Take a closer look at those bottled air machines inside of people's homes. We see that they dispense air from bottles that are similar to the standard water cooler bottles, which are around 5 gallons or 19 liters in capacity. And something about that should strike you as off. The average human breathes around 7 to 8 liters of air every minute, which is more than 10,000 liters of air per day. Meaning that if the citizens of Thneedville were solely reliant on O'Hare's jugs of air, they would run out in mere minutes. Sure, they might get themselves some psychological boost from thinking that O'Hare's air is breathing fresher, but it's just that. It's psychology, not biology. The fresh air that they're buying from O'Hare is no different from the fresh air they'd get if they simply opened up a window. Wow, it's kind of like another resource we have in real life that's available to us that many opt to pay for because it comes in tiny plastic bottles that claim to be fresher. Go figure. I'm talking about water here, guys. Thought the metaphor was obvious enough, but I feel like I need to spell it out. Bottled water. O'Hare's air is just the stand-in for bottled water. But one thing we can say is that before O'Hare, the town was a wasteland, thanks in large part to the Onceler cutting down trees. In the present day of the movie, Thneedville is an artificially created utopia, where everyone is happy, where the air is cleaner than anything that exists around it. We saw how much of a wasteland it was before O'Hare, and in the present day, we see Ted cough on smog-filled air when he leaves the city's walls. As Ted gets further away from the city, the more air pollution there seems to be. If anything, Thneedville is the one place that seems to have escaped from this fate. Somehow, by hook or by crook, Aloysius O'Hare managed to create what is, by all accounts, a thriving city. Despite the lack of trees, he found a way to allow people to breathe free air, even when they're not consuming his bottled air. If you look at it that way, O'Hare almost seems like a hero. At the end of the movie, when we look out over the ruined wasteland, it's important to understand that isn't what O'Hare created, it's what he had to overcome for his company and town to be successful. And he did it. The people are happy. As we see in the opening song of the movie, his consumers are clearly thriving, happy about him, happy about the city they live in, welcoming his entrance in the city's new parking lot in a grand chorus. In fact, if you actually look at the living conditions of people in Thneedville, it seems not bad at all. For a movie that's supposed to be all about the woes of modernity and the harm brought by capitalistic greed, we don't see anyone in Thneedville that seems to be a real victim of O'Hare's enterprises. We don't see people who are left poor and destitute. We don't see people who are forced to work jobs that they don't like in order to keep up with the rat race, or worse yet, in order to breathe. People happily prance around while they're on the job, and everyone seems to have tons of time for leisure and enough money to buy giant cars. The inciting incident of the film, where Ted goes off in search of a tree tree isn't because someone is actually suffering from a lack of trees. It's because he wants a kiss from Audrey, the hot girl next door that he has a crush on.
What I want more than anything in the whole world is to see a real living tree.
If a guy somehow got you one.
Well, I'd probably marry him on the spot.
Heck, she's not even pining for nature. She doesn't want to see a forest. She just wants to see a tree in her backyard for the funsies, for the novelty of it. These are the concerns of the people of Thneedville. It ain't too shabby. So O'Hare doesn't really seem to be that much of a bad guy here. Sure, he doesn't want to grow the tree at the end of the movie, but outside of that, he took a desolate, polluted wasteland and turned it into a consumerist utopia where everyone is happy. Sure, he's rich, but he's rich off of producing a product that people were willing to pay for. So if O'Hare isn't the bad guy, then surely the bad guy is the Onceler.
I'm not bad, I'm the good guy here.
Looks like someone's seen an episode of Film Theory before. But seriously, it's hard to defend this guy considering he's dead. Looks like someone's
That one was wrong. The Joker one was wrong. Because he called, like, the Mafia Don a minor criminal. I'm sorry, keep going.
seen an episode of Film Theory.
Making Thneeds fast enough. We could always start chopping down the trees.
Man, it is no wonder that Tumblr fell in love with this guy. He's a tall, thin, guitar-playing nerd who wears vests, loves marshmallows, and has mommy issues.
You always said I wouldn't amount to anything, remember?
Oh, hush your mouth. I was just trying to motivate you.
I'm really glad that you clarified that because it actually hurt my feelings for a really long time.
But yeah, at the end of the day, it's old Oncey who's responsible for chopping down the trees, which is bad. So thus, he is the villain. Except, we see his backstory. He sets off on his own to make a business because he has a product that he believes in.
Garbage? Oh no. Oh no, you do not get it. This is a revolutionary product that will change the world as we know it. It has a million uses.
And nobody believes in him. Nobody.
But nobody's gonna buy that thing.
He goes to town every day for a week and just gets harassed by the awful, terrible people there. Like, it is brutal for just this one guy and his guitar and a dream. And yet, despite all of this adversity, he still keeps trying. And you know what? It eventually pays off. Onceler wasn't wrong. His product is something that everyone wants. The Thneed is the world-changing product that he thought it was. I'm sorry, I just can't fault a hardworking guy with a dream who overcomes adversity to achieve tremendous success as the bad guy in this case. His one fault, and this is a biggie, is that he doesn't replace the trees. And that's not evil, it's just stupid and bad business. As he too quickly learns, without trees, his business dies. There's a reason why in real life 80 to 90% of newly planted trees are planted by logging and paper companies. To quote from one of their websites, how would it be in their best interest to destroy forests with no intention of replacing the trees that are used to make paper? Sustainability of harvestable areas is crucial to the long-term survival of any paper company, and that means that sustainable, managed forests are crucial to their business model. The harvested areas for paper companies are also known as managed forests. Essentially, detailed models are built that allow trees to be harvested sustainably. For each tree that's cut down, several are planted or naturally regrown in its place at a rate that keeps the environment stable. According to the U.S. Forest Service, over 4 million trees are planted in the United States every day, with nearly 2 million planted by the paper and wood products industries. Remember Mr. Beast's Team Trees? $20 million for 20 million trees? Amazing accomplishment, right? And it was, but in perspective, that's 5 days worth of planting for these companies. The businesses aren't evil, or at the very least aren't evil for those reasons. Their business interests force them to be sustainable, and that is the Onceler's big mistake. He didn't see the forest for the trees, if you'll pardon the pun. So who is the villain of the Lorax? It's the consumer. It's us. It's easy to point at the big business guys, in this case the Onceler and Aloysius O'Hare, and say, you did this. You're the one at fault for all of this. But they're only doing what we as the consumer are telling them to do. Both O'Hare and the Onceler reference the consumer at various points throughout the movie. Them to do. Both O'Hare and the Onceler reference the consumer at various points throughout the movie.
You gotta be kidding me. You really think people are stupid enough to buy this?
Can we fault him for selling us a product that we're telling him we want? He doesn't believe it, but if that's what we want, he'll sell it to us. And again, with the Onceler.
How bad could I possibly? All the customers are biting, and
The customers are buying. That is us telling him, we approve of what you're doing. Keep providing that service. Again, both men are just fulfilling a need that the consumer is telling them that they want. For more proof, Onceler was ready to pack up his Thneed business when it wasn't selling, but ramps it up again when consumer demand is through the roof. If it wasn't for all of those people wanting to buy a Thneed, the forest would still be intact. From what we see and hear in the movie, the people of Thneedville are perfectly happy with their giant cars and their inflatable trees and their waste of batteries. They want those things. And you know what they don't want? Trees. Onceler and O'Hare aren't the bad guys like the movie wants to frame it. It's much more complicated than that. We're the bad guys here because we are the ones that let their bad business practices slide. We didn't prioritize nature. We didn't care about the trees because we wanted a Thneed no matter the cost. We didn't care about air quality to worry about O'Hare's pollution. For change to happen, it doesn't fall on them, it falls on us. And if we disapprove of the way someone is doing business or what a company stands for, it's up to the consumer to vote with their dollar. But to both O'Hare and Onceler in the movie, the dollars thus far had been telling them, we approve what you're doing. That's why this line in the movie and in the book is so important.
Because unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better.
It's not about the Onceler. It's not about O'Hare. It's about us. And that is the message of the Lorax. One that I think most people, and especially Illumination Entertainment, completely missed. But hey... That's just a theory. A film theory. And thank you again for supporting this channel and for supporting today's sponsor.
Oh no. Should we see who the sponsor is? No. I might edit it out, but let's see if we can guess who the sponsor's gonna be.
Wait, so
I'm guessing
Honey. Who are you guessing? Is it Manscaped?
I haven't seen it yet.
I'm guessing Manscaped or Honey. Also, make sure to check out Matt Pat's Make sure to check out Matt Pat's live stream on December 1st. Donate if you can. We cannot.
I wanted to, but I wasn't allowed to.
What's your guess? What's your guess for your sponsor?
I'm guessing NordVPN.
Oh, really? Okay.
NordVPN.
Oh! No!
No way!
Take it. But I guess I swear, like, I kid you not. This is the first time we've watched this video. I swear, we have not seen this before. This is just.
I don't know. I had the feeling it had been NordVPN.
I swear, if this was a long time ago, we'd be arrested for witches and a lot of other reasons, but we're not getting into that. That Nate probably has to edit out.
Oh yeah.
So
they're gonna have a fun time with that. So anyway, if there's anything else, we're friends.
We are. Yes, I don't.
Sorry. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.